Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Manchester City podcast on the Global Sports Podcast Network. I'm Jools Jordan Probert and I'm joined today by Lewis Royal. Hi Lewis.
Hi Jools, it's good to be back and hopefully back to winning ways on the weekend with a bit of cup action and what you would say an easier opponent, because I think we did lose 5-1 last weekend. I vaguely remember. So yeah, hopefully better this week.
Yeah, I can't remember too much about that game anymore myself, so I think the best thing is to quickly move on, forget it ever happened, and get back to winning ways. And as you say, the opponent theoretically should be a lot easier. City face Leyton Orient, travel to the Gowan Group Stadium at 12:15 on Saturday in the fourth round of the FA Cup, in what could be City's only chance at silverware this season. Leyton Orient have done brilliant to get here, beating Boreham Wood on penalties, Oldham Athletic, and then beating Championship Derby County on penalties to get rewarded by meeting the Premier League champions. Lewis mentioned the 5-1 loss to Arsenal last time out. How important is it to get back to winning ways and right those wrongs?
Yeah, I think it's massive with the tricky run of fixtures that we have got coming up. It is definitely good to, like we did a few weeks ago, pick up some momentum. I think that's definitely vital. Obviously, it's Arsenal away. We went there not really expecting much. We were humbled apparently. I'm not too sure about that. I'm not sure how we can be humbled and not Arsenal when they haven't actually won anything yet. So I'll keep my mouth shut. That's an argument for another day. But yeah, it's definitely important to progress in the FA Cup. I think the FA Cup as a tournament this season is massive for us, with the Prem looking out of reach, with Liverpool being top class. The Champions League looking a bit ropey with Real Madrid to play home and away, and it's just more games to our calendar to add to our injuries and etc. And then obviously we knocked out the League Cup by Spurs, unfortunately. Our bogey teams, yeah, I think it's definitely vital, and it'll be good to see us hopefully score a few goals on the weekend and not concede as many against a League One outfit. So yeah.
And City obviously have a great record in this competition, especially under Pep Guardiola. How much do you enjoy the FA Cup, and how important is it to put the wrongs of last season's final to bed?
Yeah, well, it's one of the most prestigious English tournament. Yeah, I love it. I think that it's been great for years. It's loved by many of the public, and I think that obviously we got beat to United last year in the final, which wasn't ideal. Our noisy neighbours, obviously Mainu catching the headlines, but you know I've had great memories of the FA Cup. I think we beat Watford 6-1 one year, and obviously Yaya Touré's heroics against Stoke in 2011. I remember watching that, and that was what really set us up and running to all our great success since the takeover. So yeah, I think that I would love to win the FA Cup this year, and even if it is just the FA Cup and the Prem doesn't pick up and the Champions League doesn't go to plan, then I would be happy with the season we've had in comparison to recent years.
So top four and FA Cup after the season that we've all experienced, that would be decent for you.
Yeah, I'll take that happily.
Yeah, there's plenty of teams that still don't win silverware despite all the chat, isn't there? As you might have alluded
Yeah,
to.
there's a few you can name. Yeah.
We won't do that because we're diplomatic on this podcast. But yeah, I think as long as the silverware keeps coming in, obviously this year's a bit of a write-off at this point. Bed in some of the new signings, which we can get into in a bit, and some of the youth players too. And with that in mind, who do you expect to play? There's going to be a lot of rotation here, surely.
Yeah, well, I think obviously our newest signing, Nico Gonzalez from Porto, I think will definitely get a start. Give him some minutes just to get his confidence for the club. We know how hard it is to come into Man City and perform. Grealish is a prime example of that. Uh, and yeah, fill in the midfield, which can hopefully move forward into the league. Obviously, against Arsenal, I think Bernardo had to drop to centre mid with Kovacic and Gundogan not being at his best, like we've mentioned. But in terms of youth products, obviously, I definitely want to see James McAtee starting again. Hat trick last time out against Salford. I thought he was superb. And he even said it himself how much he wants to excel and prove to the fans, prove to Pep how good of a player he is and why he's there. And he wants to get on the ball. So I think this is another great opportunity for him. Not at the Etihad this time. So not as clean a surface to what he's used to and he's been brought with. And I think that we will find it tricky at Leyton Orient, like we did against Cheltenham a few years ago, where we had to scrape a 3-2 win. Nico O'Reilly as well. I would want to see him again. He did good in left back against Salford. I know he's been looked at by Chelsea, I think I saw recently, and a few other clubs sniffing towards him. But yeah, just hopefully um, Nico Gonzalez can perform. Hopefully, he looks good for our midfield crisis. And yeah, I'd love to see a few youth products getting on the pitch again.
That massive win against Salford that you mentioned, that really did lift the club, didn't it? After what had been obviously a terrible run. Arsenal have put that to an end recently, but these FA Cup games where you get young players coming in and performing, McAtee getting a hat-trick last time, it's really exciting, really invigorating. So it could be another catalyst for what could be a strong end to the season, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the deficit against Salford, like you said, yeah, really, it was really good for the fans, good for the club, and I imagine it was good for the changing room. It would have spurred the players on moving forward, and especially spurred Pep on after his little domestic issues and his obviously issues on the pitch this season. So yeah.
Yeah, we can't all be at the top all the time, right? The bigger they are, the harder they fall. And that's why everyone wants to laugh at Erling Haaland. We're
Exactly.
we're gonna take a little break now, and then when we come back, we'll look a bit more at Leyton Orient and what they have done to get here, and a bit more about their team.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Manchester City podcast on the Global Sports Podcast Network. We're here previewing Man City's fourth round FA Cup tie at Leyton Orient on Saturday. So a little bit more about Leyton Orient for the unfamiliar. They've been mainly a Football League side since their founding in 1881. Before they had huge financial trouble and on-field trouble under Italian owner Francesco Bacchetti, which got them relegated twice in 3 years under 11 managers. Nigel Travis took over in 2017 and appointed the late manager Justin Edinburgh, the O's legend who got them back into the Football League, winning the National League in 2018-19 and getting the East Stand named after him after his passing in 2020. A couple of years in League Two have preceded that before Richie Wellens guided the team into League One, claiming the League Two title in 2023. Wellens himself has just been awarded the League One Manager of the Month after a stellar few weeks. Leyton Orient are in 6th in League One and in great form, only losing 3 of the last 21 in all competitions. But unfortunately for the O's, all 3 of those have been at home. Have you got any stories about Richie Wellens that you'd be willing to share, the Lewis, or any insight to the man?
Yeah, so he's a massive. No, I'm only joking. Yeah, well, his son Charlie Wellens was at Man United academy growing up, and he went to my school for 2 or 3 years, and then I think he's at Reading now. But his dad um, was obviously a footballer himself as well. He played for Doncaster and a few clubs, so it's great to see him excelling now as a manager, which I didn't actually think he would. But he is. So yeah, and I'm glad he's doing well. Hopefully not too well on the weekend.
What's his wallpaper like?
It's just gold. It's just pure gold. A block of gold all around his house. That's what it is.
Oh dear. Well, hopefully he won't be getting his hands on any of it if City have anything to do with it. There's been 16 meetings between the two sides. The O's have only won 2 of them. The first meeting between the two in 1909, and which was a 3-2 loss for City. Football did exist back then, believe it or not, and 4-3 when both teams were in League Two in 1964. City have won all but 2 of the remaining 14, and this will be the 3rd meeting in the FA Cup, with City winning both of the previous ones, both away and both in the 1920s. So lots of relevant recent history between the two to go on. But the two haven't met since I've just lost it. sorry, I think it's 1967, but we'll call it since the mid to late 60s. A lot has changed for Manchester City in those times. The City have obviously turned into a powerhouse, and Leyton Orient have gone through the mill. But this is really what the FA Cup is all about, isn't it, Lewis? Leyton Orient have beaten a few good teams to get here and to be on TV against the English champions. And yeah, just speak a little bit about what it could mean for these smaller teams coming up against such a big team as Man City.
Yeah, for the small teams in the FA Cup, it's always massive. You see the excitement of the fans, the manager, the captains of the clubs when the draw's made. We saw it in Tamworth, who gave it a really good go against Spurs, who actually must have feared the occasion, the fans that were there at the stadium, the difference in pitch, although it was on 3G, 4G, would you believe that you can actually have Bobbly Astro? James Maddison didn't believe it, but there you go. So yeah, I think that obviously money wise for the club as well, financially it's superb, and yeah, I think that they're going to give it a real good go. Why wouldn't you? They'll get the fans behind it. They're at home. They're on TV, like you said. Early kick-off, just like Tamworth were. And I think that it'll be a great occasion, a great day out almost. Not just a football match, it's a day out. And if they do happen to progress to the fifth round, then it would be a great achievement for the club, and it would make the headlines and it would make history forever.
I think even a good performance or a goal or two would create a memory that would live in the memory of all those fans, wouldn't it? Many of which I'm sure have been following the club during many of the financial troubles they experienced in the early tens or late noughties, and the relegations that came with that. So yeah, these are the moments that you look back on when you're older, following a team like this, and they live strong. Their current squad has got a couple of players that some people, maybe not many, but some might be aware of. Current captain Darren Pratley, ex-Premier League player with Swansea and Bolton Wanderers. He must be about 40 odd now, so fair play to him. What a legend. Jamie Donnelly, very highly rated Spurs loanee. Not set the world alight, but he's someone that I know a lot of people have got their eye on moving forward. New signing Azim Abdullahi from Swansea has started excellently for Orient, scoring 3 and getting an assist in his first 3 games. And their fullbacks are probably where the strength in the team lies. You have Jack Curry on the left and Tom James on the right, who are solid and provide width and the energy all game long. However, you would expect Man City to have the major say in this one, Lewis. Who do you expect to be some of the standout performers, and where do you see this game being won for City?
I think, like against Salford, like we saw on the wings, like we've said before, I think with Doku and Savino will hopefully get some game time, and I think that their pace, their first touch, their acceleration, and especially Doku, the sharpness of him, it will be too much for Leyton Orient. However, like you say, and obviously you can't really blame the pitch, you're Manchester City, but it probably will have an effect. You know, the odd bobble here and there. I'm sure it won't stop Doku from doing his little shimmy and his little sidestep the odd time, but I think he's been great in the cup matches this season so far. So I think that definitely the pace and ultimately the fitness towards the end of the match, especially if it does go straight to extra time. I think that, like you saw with Spurs overruling Tamworth in that last 30 minutes, it will definitely take an effect on Leyton Orient's defensive ability ultimately.
And if I had to push you for a score prediction?
Score prediction. So you never know, because I wouldn't be confident with us keeping a clean sheet. Definitely not. I don't think many fans would, although we would like it. I mean, Salford did come close on a few occasions. You've got to give it to him. His score prediction, I'd want to say 4-1, but I can't. I don't know. I feel like it'll be tighter. Maybe like a 3-1, maybe even a 3-2, like it was against Cheltenham 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, who knows?
Good viewing for the neutral, not for any potential listeners of this podcast. Then, eh?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I think he'll be comfortable. But away trips, with the FA Cup giant killings, you never know what can happen. It happens to someone every season, doesn't it? So this would be the year to get City as well, if there was ever going to be one. But I'm not putting that into the universe. We're not manifesting that. It's going to be a routine, comfortable win, and McAtee's is going to bang another hat-trick. We're going to take another break now, and when we come back, we're going to look at some of the other fixtures in the FA Cup this weekend.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we've spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and let me tell you, Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, then check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Hello and welcome back to the daily Manchester City podcast on the Global Sports Podcast Network. We're here previewing the FA Cup this weekend. We've gone through Man City's trip to Leyton Orient, and now I'm just going to go through quickly some of the other fixtures. So Man United are hosting Leicester today. That's yet another trip to Old Trafford for Ruud van Nistelrooy. Do you see him getting any more than he's had over the last couple of experiences there?
No, I don't. I think that, well, it was Van Nistelrooy managing United against Leicester in the League Cup, I think, earlier this season, where it was 5-2, was it 5-1? It was a demolishment, realistically, and I
Probably
think
got the
that,
job off the back of that, to be honest.
yeah, I think he probably did, yeah, yeah. We've seen Leicester give City a good game at home, but I just think it's at Old Trafford. It's the FA Cup. We saw United excel against Liverpool last season in the FA Cup with Ahmad's heroics, which he's also done to us this season. So I just think that it will be too much for Leicester going there tonight in the FA Cup, and I do see United progressing, unfortunately. However, I would love an upset because it would be a massive upset for Leicester to progress.
Yeah, and United, of course, won at Emirates in the previous round as well, knocking out Arsenal. So a lot of the same reasons that we've said the FA Cup's so important to City this year applies tenfold to Man United, really, doesn't it? I think, yes, they're the holders, which gives a bit more pressure too. But, I mean, their league form, Ruben Amorim needs something. Like, I've seen people saying he's under pressure already. And how could you not be? They've lost most of the games since he's been there. So an FA Cup run could be exactly what is needed for them too, but hopefully not too big a runner. We have Leeds versus Millwall, which is about as tasty as it could get in the Championship. That's the old football hooligan derby there. Leeds flying high at the top of the Championship this season. Millwall have been good since Alex Neil's taken over, but I feel like that one might be a bit too close to call. We have Coventry versus Ipswich. Coventry under Frank Lampard have improved slightly. They have stolen Swansea's captain in January as well, Matt Grimes, who looks to have settled in quite well. But for Ipswich, again, this could be so important to their mentality for the rest of the season. They could look at it as if they get out of the FA Cup, they could concentrate on the league more. But I don't think it normally works like that. I think the positivity that you get from winning in any form carries over, and a strong cup run could really do wonders for their Premier League survival chances, Lewis.
No, it definitely could. I think a big cup win, because Coventry are a bad side. We'd reached the semi-finals last year, was it? And I think that it'll definitely spur the fans on. It'll spur Ipswich on. Hopefully, Liam Delap can get a goal or two to take that into the Premier League and carry on his immense form this season, and hopefully get them out of the bottom three, because it would be sad to see the three promoted teams all go back down. Wolves might slip in there. I don't see it, but yeah, I want to see some change in terms of that. The gap between the Premier League and the Championship changing. Because at the minute it's too big of a gap for me.
Yeah, I agree. This year has really kind of highlighted the difference between the Championship and the Prem, isn't it? And Ipswich kind of started okay, but it's all gone down the wayside since. And losing at home to Southampton, that is criminal. Yeah. That there's only 7 points between the two teams now, where that's probably unacceptable, really. Yeah, Kieran McKenna.
Southampton were on for the worst points record, weren't they? Derby's 11. So
they're still on for it. They're still on for it.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, after that win, you'd imagine they'll crawl over that line. They're only 7 points away from getting out of the relegation zone, but then that's a much bigger task. Scrolling down a little bit now, we have Everton versus Bournemouth. This is the last season for Everton at Goodison Park, so it could be massive for the club to potentially bring the FA Cup back to it. We obviously Bournemouth are flying, but a Goodison Park is going to have a great atmosphere for this one, Lewis.
Yeah, I see Everton getting the job done. I think that in a cup game, in a one-off, it's basically a cup final for Everton to make it as far as they can. They're not expected to go far. I think they're safe now in the Prem. They picked up a few good results over the recent few weeks, and James Garner, special mention to him. That assist was spectacular. But yeah, I think that Bournemouth on the day can be quite dodgy, especially away from home and especially in the cup. So yeah, hopefully, I would like to see Everton go through.
David Moyes, of course, took Everton to the FA Cup final. I think it was 2010. The fastest ever FA Cup final goal as well. Lewis Sahar, but Chelsea bested them that day. So I'm sure he would love to get his hands on the FA Cup, a trophy that he has never won as a manager, but come close. We have Birmingham versus Newcastle. Birmingham flying high in Leyton Orient's league, as they should be with the money they've spent, to be quite honest. But with Newcastle, everyone is excited about their chances of winning the cup after beating Arsenal in midweek in the Carabao Cup. Do you see them resting with this one, with a hectic Premier League schedule involved as well?
Yeah, I don't see them going full strength like they did against Arsenal in the week. I think that the FA Cup for them is not a main target. They'll happily take a League Cup, having come very close a couple of years ago or last year, whenever it was. So I think that Eddie Howe will definitely be thinking about European spots in the league. Obviously thinking about that final against Liverpool. I mean, what a massive game that is. But I see it going all the way. I think that Eddie Howe wouldn't want it to. He'd rather just lose. But I do see it going all the way to extra time with Birmingham obviously having a team, basically a top half championship team going up against Newcastle. So I think it'll definitely be a test away from home for the Toon, yeah.
It's a perfect opportunity for a giant kill in that one, with Newcastle obviously putting so much energy into reaching the Carabao Cup final. Yeah, they could be there for the taking, but they should have the strength and depth to see off someone from League One, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Brighton versus Chelsea. Definitely one of the ties of the weekend. Both teams could probably do with a trophy, that's for sure. Brighton, of course, haven't won one in a long time, and Chelsea have gone longer than they're used to without one. And both of these sides at the start of the season, you would have fancied for running this tournament. How do you see this one going, Lewis?
Again, it's hard to call. I do see Enzo Maresca really trying to go for this FA Cup. The leagues fell away. Obviously, they've got the Conference League, which they should win, but I mean, West Ham won that, so I mean, there you go. That's all you need to know. So I do think that Chelsea do progress against Brighton. Brighton this season have had mixed emotions about. They've been spectacular in some games. They started off really well, looking really promising for Europe again, but then they've sort of fell off with a few dodgy results, and I don't think they're consistent enough. So they're also going to be wanting to go on a big FA Cup run. Obviously, sitting mid-table in the Premier League. So yeah, I think it'll be a great watch and definitely a great one for the neutral.
Yeah, I agree. There's always goals between these two. And it's fallen off, like you say, quite a bit for Brighton over the last few weeks, including that 7-0 hammering at the hands of Nottingham
Oh
Forest,
yeah, of course, yeah.
which has probably lost a bit of graces with the Brighton fans for their new man Hurtler. So yeah, I think the FA Cup could be a very important avenue for him and Brighton this season, because the way it's going, it's turning out to be quite a poor season, but there's still time. There's still time. Next, we have Aston Villa versus Spurs. And I think this, you could say, is the tie of the weekend, because there's strong rumours that a certain Ange Postecoglou will lose his job if he loses this game. It's a shame it comes down to a one-game shootout like this, but recent performances for them, and then that pretty pathetic showing against Liverpool. Yes, Liverpool can do that to anyone, but to go out in a cup semi-final without a shot on target and without any kind of semblance of a chance in the game
Mhm.
is got to be disappointing. So how important is this for him and for Spurs, Lewis?
It's absolutely huge. I think that obviously we all know Ange just said that in his second season he wins a trophy, so here's his chance to prove it ultimately. And if he doesn't, it's going to be a torrid season for Spurs. Where are they in the league? They sit 14th. They were down to 16th at one point last week. And yeah, it's gone literally gone from bad to terrible to absolutely abysmal Spurs. I mean, look at the facilities they've got at the stadium. It just doesn't match where they currently sit this season in all competitions, especially if they don't pick up a win at Villa Park on the weekend.
And that is not the place you want to go when you're desperately vying for a result. Villa Park, and yes, Villa have done excellent in the Champions League, got a lot of plaudits there, but the league form has stuttered in the last couple of months, probably the effects of the Champions League coming into play there. But I think Emery loves the Cups, doesn't he? And I think he would love to bring the FA Cup to Villa Park, one of England's most historic stadiums, used to host semi-finals every year as well. So I think it'll be a cracking game. Have you got a score prediction for that one?
I see lots of goals. I do see lots of goals. Angie's going to go for it. I'd probably say 2-2. Maybe Villa win on penalties. I think it'll be very close.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. The last game we're going to talk about is Exeter versus Forest. You'd imagine there would be a lot of rotation for Forest going so well in the Premier League. Third, and while we're on it, I did the last episode I did with Josh Vince from the Daily Arsenal team. I forgot to even mention Nottingham Forest when we were discussing where City would finish. We both said City would come third come the end of the season. And I said, yeah, if City finish above Chelsea, it'll probably be a good season. Of course, I forgot about the stampeding
Mm.
of Nottingham Forest this season. They have been fantastic. So I should never be forgetting about them. I do think they might drop off come the end of the season. I think that's not an unfair thing to suggest, but an FA Cup run could turn what is a great season into an even better one, Lewis.
Yeah, I think it's a weird one with Forest because obviously many people had them to come like 17th, scraping relegation. I think I had them 15th or 16th. It's sort of they don't look amazing when they play. Like you watch Liverpool and you think, yeah, that's a title winning side. They look absolutely fantastic, both attacking and defensively. But with Forest, I think it's more of the fact that they're so clinical. Chris Wood this season has had his shooting boots on for sure. He's literally going for the golden boot. I mean, no one would have ever predicted that come the start of the season. So I think that it is a weird one. In terms of the FA Cup, yeah, it would be fantastic. I mean, Champions League and an FA Cup run would be what Forest fans would have dreamed of being in the Championship 2 or 3 seasons ago. So yeah, I think it would be fabulous for them. I don't think Exeter is too much of a hurdle, but like you say, it's a massive trip down south, and yeah, it'd be a dodgy pitch, and you never know.
Yeah, familiar with Exeter's pitch, are we?
Yeah, very. I've seen it from the motorway actually, driving past a few times. Very on a big hill, so there you go. Very windy that one.
There we are. That's the best insight and knowledge on the Daily Manchester City podcast for all of you. And just finally on Forest, yes, they probably don't play like a team you'd expect to be winning as often as they do, but I find that really refreshing. It's kind of the antithesis or the opposite of what Man City do, absorbing all that pressure and then being so clinical. And if you watch them in the highlights, they look like they play brilliant football. You know,
Yeah, yeah, I
but
know. Yeah,
they do create loads of chances. So I'm being a bit facetious there. They have been so good going forward this year. Teams just cannot handle how quick and direct and clinical they are. You mentioned Chris Wood, but also Morgan Gibbs-White has been one of the best players in the league, in my opinion, this year. And
yeah,
Anthony
super.
Alanga has kicked on so much. So this isn't FA Cup related, but where do you think they'll finish come the end of the season in the Premier League?
Well, I mean, there's actually not that long to go. I do think the Champions League's definitely a possibility for them. Hopefully, we can sneak in there with fourth. But then again, like you say, you've got Chelsea coming back. You've got Newcastle who are gonna make a charge. Who are still there or thereabouts. So, I guess time will tell. But if I had to pick, I would probably say fifth.
I think
Unfortunately for
fifth
Forest fans.
fifth might be enough this year, though.
Oh, it might actually, yeah, mightn't it?
So I mentioned that the other day. It could be a good year for City for it to be 5 teams going through in the Champions League, because it might well come down to that. But if it is 5, then the neutral in me wants to say, then yes, they'll do it. But with these defensive teams, they tend to run out of steam come the end of the season, don't they? Unless you're called Leicester City. But yeah, if Chris Wood, Morgan Gibbs-White, Anthony Elanga keep firing and their defence stays as it is. They had that big blip with the 5-0 loss, didn't they? But after that, come back with a 7-0 win. So the mentality is not an issue there. And Nuno has done an amazing job. And that will about do it for us today. Looking ahead to the FA Cup this weekend. I've been Jools Jordan Probert. Thank you to Lewis for joining me. We've been the Daily Manchester City podcast on the Global Sports Podcast Network. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.